All right, well, it's a change of perspective here. Basically, I've got the whole steering deleted off of the Dingo here. So these are free to basically turn. I'm just sitting out here trying to brainstorm what I want, and I'm right now holding the steering wheel side of things to figure out where I want to sit, or where I want it to sit. Odds are very well that we're going to have to make an extension on either on our steering wheel mount component here inside our steering bushing, or our U-joint section, which that's what I'm trying to target. But however I do that is going to be questionable, but I need to have all the pieces in place to really give a definitive answer. So this is about where I'm at here, head height, and that's about where I want the steering wheel to be. If I zoom out, want a nice little 80 degree or so mount, kind of like a cross cart, and we'll have we could have our rack and pinion mount sit somewhere roughly where the original steering was here. But I was hoping out somewhere out of the way in that air gap there, where the end of the steering rod was to turn our pieces. Because, I mean, realistically, if I move my feet out of the way here, our tie rod arms were somewhere right here. So that would mean I'd have to put my steering box alternatively in a similar spot if I wanted to replicate the same steering ratio and everything. But I'm exploring my options. It is something to think about. And as far as mounting the steering box, rack and pinion, whatever you want to really call it, I've got some U-bolts here that will fit real nicely over this boss here, almost loosely, but I think when we tighten it down, it should help hold it in place. If not, we can almost put it on the sock here and really cause some fun. But that will have to be brainstormed as well. But we'll have like a plate or a couple set of brackets with some bends to elevate it up, and the hope is to have it sit somewhere right here. Not too high up though, so it interferes with the pivot of our pedals. Doesn't seem to do that at the minute. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping for there.
Nope.
Okay, so I recycled the original steering wheel hoop, cut off the old bushing that was sitting here, because I realized that, well, shoot, I put these brackets on here thinking if I weld them on to this crossbar here, it'd be great. But apparently, from my perspective here, that wheel's too high and it's gonna hit these bars here. However, if I put it on the front side here, that looks great, but it's really close to my arms and it won't really feel comfy. But if we sneak it behind it, it's the perfect distance and it's pretty comfortable for me. And originally, I made these holes for just cosmetics and quote-unquote weight reduction, so it wasn't a simple looking plate. But I think I might be able to use this outer one here as a plug weld, a little rosette weld on the back side here of this pipe once it's fully welded. Got a couple of strong tacks on here. I like the positioning of this, so let's go ahead and get some things welded out here. that cool off. And the thing I realized though, which may or may not work in my favor, but we can always adjust, is that now that I welded on this hole in the other side where my bearings could have shrunk. So if anything, I could have got my press fit 1000 bearings back on that one. But we'll see. But that's warm. Okay, I've got the steering part cooled off and tacked in place. I got one bearing on there, which by the way the fit is a little bit tighter as I predicted. Works in my favor. I have two tacks on here. Siri, if I shove this in here, yeah. This is pretty tight. But I think it'll work. Yes. This is pretty tight. But I mean the Dingo itself is a tight cart. And when I get everything else in position, my legs clear the steering wheel, this is a lot more comfortable. And the likelihood that I'm going to be full turning to the right is negligible, but I have the means to do it if need be. But that's going to be very dependent on how I set up my steering geometry with the tie rods. Theory states the longer your steering arm is traveling, or the whole location of it, the more sensitive it is. But the closer you get to your steering pivot, the more you have to crank the wheel because it's not moving as much. All that scientific theory aside, I love this. I feel it engages pretty well on this cart. It'd be funny if it'd be like a quick release wheel, but this will be kind of fixed in place. This is going to be solid and pretty good. Alright, let's get this thing welded on. I also got to find a way to get this bearing out now because it was a tight squeeze. Gonna have to pop that out carefully somehow. Woo! Youch. Ah! Oops. Oh, that's right, the little wire holes were over there. Previous owner decided to put his kill wires, just a frayed wire with a freaking self-tapping screw to the ground, and then drive the wire into the tubing down to the motor. Which kudos on that for cable management, but it means I have to weld it shut. Okay. That's really not going anywhere at least. Now last but not least, whether or not if I can stab tack. Whoa. Not really. really solid. It's not really going to go ground, honestly. That's been rosetted. That is such cheat. An accidental cheat. And I've got 2 1/2-inch holes for whatever reason that I want. Maybe we'll keep it there for cosmetics for now. And then put extra switches there if you wanted to. Now she ain't going anywhere. All right, I've done some thinking off camera, and the way I see it, at least the way I'm mostly understanding it, putting this steering rack right here isn't gonna really work out in my favor. As you can see, I took off both front spindles, one of which had a really rusted and shut bolt. I had to say screw it and cut it off. I'm gonna have to be replacing them anyway. I tried swapping them around, having the spindle steering bit on this side here, and even though I've tried to put both wheels back on, there's not enough steering here. I guess that's called Apperance steering. Could be wrong on that, but anyway, it doesn't steer perfectly going inwards like that. It's perfect coming out, but not going in. So we're gonna revert back to the original location, or the rough original location where this was, and stick the rack somewhere in here on the floor pan, out of the way of our shoes, and then allowing us to cut this into 2 pieces and then extend it for whatever length we need, so that we can couple that U-joint to this splined coupler, and then hook up our steering, which turned out pretty good. I had to grind open the bearing brace so I can put the bearings in, and it's more of a kind of a tap in place. So we've got our press fit for now, but then we're going to have to be careful when we get this powder coated later. So I'm at a point where I'm just going to need to take some time to design a little mounting bracket to raise this up just enough to clear the frame, and then so that we can meet up with our original holes there. I'm gonna run to the hardware store, get a better 1/2-inch bolt than this. I was lucky to get this loose with the impact gun and some leverage, but it was not fun. That one was seized on shut, but we'll get some fresh hardware. We'll also get some cotter pins for our metric tie rods here, somewhere on there. There they are, yep. Gonna have to get a cotter pin to fit into that. And then we're also gonna have to cut this down and then shrink it and then re-weld it, which fortunately I've got some pipe for this. This is leftover piping I had from doing the cable management on Bandit. And to my surprise, it slips in there rather very smoothly. So we can cut a couple pieces off and then drill a couple holes for some rosettes and then just rosette it, and then it'll be good. Fortunately, it's not, I think it's the same outer diameter as our U-joint spline shaft. So this won't really work unless we get some actual shafting inserts, provided that this is solid, or not solid, this is tubing in here, which we'll have to cut that open and find out. Then we can probably get some bits that can shove into there, shove into this, and then weld our extension that way. But we won't know until we know. Okay, I got the wheels reinstalled with a grade 8 bolt. It's a lot better now, and I'm glad I did that, since that one was seized shut. And I've got my steering rack loosely mocked up in place. And of course, now we can get a better visual of what the problem is here. So if I point my wheel straight, we have that much excess distance in there. And plus our center lines of our tie rod is probably not straight, so I probably could fix that by flipping this upside down and having it point up, but we'll have to play with it. I might have to re-weld these spindle arms. I might have to bend them down to make them fit, but one of these arms Oh, there we go. Now it wants to gimbal. I don't know if it's supposed to do that, and if not, give me a holler in the comments. But either way, I could go through the trouble of ordering new ones and wasting money, make it right, or I can modify these to where I cut a length in the middle to make out this distance here in neutral, and then be able to use the same ones with a little rosetted bit of pipe welded up to make up the difference here. Because if I turn this wheel inwards, we can couple up to that, no problem there. But neutral, there's just not enough play or anything in here. So right to the right or turning the wheel will make it straight, but then turning it more, it wouldn't be enough. Basically, my tie rod ends are too long. This one over here, I don't know if it's just because of the damage up in the front here or what, but I've had to refund it just a little bit just to get the clearance from the cart. Same issue here, but I want to be able to have that adjustability so I can adjust the toe in and out here for both wheels, which I don't know what was going on with the Dingo in this one. This is on the driver's side, and it is threaded like normal, but you get to the passenger side, and I don't know if this is from the previous seller or if this was Manco's original design, but that is just ugh. With the power video editing, we're gonna go ahead and see about getting this guy all set up, somewhat mocked up in place. Well, that didn't work. Anyway, let's get this taken care of. Oh, and there we have it. We have our steering box tacked in place, square to all four corners on the taper, making sure we're even on both sides. Now I can actually get this guy all figured out. Yeah, see, and here you go. Here's a better visual. I'm straight here, but I'm acting like I'm turned all the way to the right. So we need to basically, my working theory is measure our distance here and then cut out a portion so that we have that adjustability in our tie rods on both ends here. Yeah, I think that's more like it. I've got full turn this way and full turn that way. I'm also using the factory original spindle arms and the holes, which these metric threads just fit in there perfectly, like it was made for it, even though we were dealing with American SA hardware, Hiraeth hardware if I'm not mistaken. But I did have to bend the straps here with a crescent wrench here to make everything kind of line up in the axis as close as possible. And it's a little bit angled. I don't know if that's supposed to be like that or if it's intentional to have that little bit of leverage, but I don't see an issue here. I like to learn and experiment with it, see if it works. And being that these are really small, these were originally 7.5 inches and now they're shorter. I took off less than 2.5 inches. I think it's just gonna be better if I just weld around the outside here and weld around the outside here and then let this be the coupler in here. But I got everything tacked in place for now just to see if this is gonna work so that way I don't bite myself in the butt too badly, possible foreshadowing. But now we just need to get the last missing link, which you may be able to see right away. My steering tube is that way, but it's a yard cart. I'd like to make it the best that I can, but honestly, I think it's just one of those between you and me I can live with. But we need to get the last missing link of the equation here, which is getting that to hook up to this with that little distance right there. Okay, I am beyond speechless for words and how lucky I got with this. Now, the fitment of this tubing into these hexagonals were, easy slip on, but this was tight, but very well advantageous in my favor. It was kind of more of a drive-in fit. There's no welds on this, and it's not even anywhere. I've laid out some marks to figure out, okay, I need this much of a distance or so from this link to this link here to accommodate for the connection between our yoke here and our steering yoke here. And I put in some holes for some rosettes here because we have a little bit of air gap here. I will weld this around here, but I also want a rosette just to make it as strong as possible. But just as it is though, credit to where credit is due, this is sturdy and not really going anywhere. And I'm shaking the whole frame or the whole linkage here. I had to basically loosen up my steering rack mount here just so I can re-clock this, which is a good advantage of doing it this way here, because I can actually adjust this so I can slip this guy into here and lock it into place, and then drive this into here and lock it into place, tighten everything down, and we've got freaking steering again. Now, my wheel probably isn't in the right spot right now at the minute, and also I couldn't be out of alignment with my toes, but this is just to make sure everything's gonna work the way I wanted to, and that is a guaranteed ka-chunk check in my box here. Of course, we need to test it, but as far as concept-wise, this is exciting. And the real moment of truth, is it gonna work out for me personally? And this will guarantee whether or not, if I'm gonna be able to weld everything out or not. Whoa. Well, my feet are in a very good position. I have something to use as a rest if I wanted to. I've got good gas, I've got brake. Alrighty. The steering radius is about where it is. This is very satisfying. So let's see here. This is rough neutral position here. Wheels look like they're towed out a little bit. To the left is half 180 degrees or so. To the right, it's a little more than about 100. So we have a little bit decent gain with our wheel here, but it's a yard cart. Mostly the wheels, the steering wheels aren't straight, and if anything, like, you might be able to fight with the spline index on here and then move it over one tooth, change the timing of it so we're more square. Or I might be able to leave it straight where it is and then toe my wheels appropriately, so now that I can get where I want this here. But this is very satisfying. This feels a lot nicer than the little jagged steering in here that we had before. All right, let's go ahead and get some things welded out. Well, I'm at a point now where the sun's starting to go down, and I can just basically let everything cool off overnight, and then in the next segment we'll go through the quick process of bolting everything back up and then getting this thing aligned and actually get this back off the ground and reoriented it. we go. All right, a bit of a change of perspective now. We now have the Dingo on its own weight. Everything's all bolted up and tightened down for the moment, minus the cotter pins on the tie rod ends there. A couple of things I was battling with when I was finalizing this was just maybe not really the alignment of the steering, but actually moreover my steering rotation, my degrees of rotation here. I noticed that when I turn one way to the left, I have more rotation to the left than I do to the right, and the tires also dictated that. I also tried adjusting some of the toe with some of my 2x4 boards here to try to get them equal. And reality of the matter is I can crank about 180 degrees to the left. I've got most of my rotation to my left back. I've got cranked almost 180 to the right, and I've got most of my right here. I'm gonna theorize I might have a little more left turning than I do right turning. And so far what I've been able to do to compensate that is adjust my spindles, tie rods, while using the factory spindle strap still to pull this in so that I can have more pulling force coming to the right to help compensate for that. It might throw up my toe alignment, but this is just one of those plug and play. That's the word I'm looking for here. And now that we're actually legitimately on the ground a little bit lower, the question still stands, can I get in the cart? Well, pretty much yes. I've gotten used to actually getting in the cart now this way. I actually can slide in a lot comfortable now this way too. There's my perspective in a sense. I'm pretty happy with it. And this feels a lot better too compared to the original clunky yard cart steering. It's more smooth, it's more easier to control, and it's just one of those I need to get out there and test to see how it really does. But before I do that, we got a couple more things to fix on the next coming episodes. Two big things. We got to get my exhaust set up here, and I need brakes. I went ahead and chopped off the little silencer that I had on before because I wanted to test fit and see how I was going to be able to use this factory stainless-like piece on our existing header here. It slips on, but we got a little bit of an air gap here. So like last time with the street bike muffler project, I'm pretty sure that we can be able to shaping this up, or maybe if we just put little pie cuts in here and then shrink it in, or just find some ways to just shaping it along this muffler here. And then we're gonna have to reclock it to a position to where this will sit here and give us that smokestack looking exhaust. Something I might look into in the background too. Once I've got this muffler where I wanted to, get one of those little diesel caps that you see on tractors that just flaps open as it's shooting out exhaust. That might be funny and entertaining to see. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there here in the next upcoming episodes. So I think this is a pretty satisfying point to call it. We made another big dent of progress taking care of this. That is one down, and I would say roughly 2 to go, but there's a couple more that I'm thinking about in the background to add to it. That's kind of on the lower priority, but we got to focus on the back now that we've taken care of the front. So thank you everyone so much for watching this one. I hope that you guys are enjoying the series thus far. Leave a thumbs up if you are, and then comment down your thoughts about this project. And other than that, my name is Kane and Nighthawk, and I will see you guys in the next one.